Hello everyone. Today we will delve into the topic of key stakeholders in land governance in India. This is a vital area of study because land governance is deeply intertwined with social equity, economic development, and sustainable urbanization. India's land governance landscape is complex due to its diverse cultural, legal, and institutional settings. Understanding the roles and interactions of the various stakeholders is crucial for addressing the challenges in this domain and leveraging opportunities for inclusive development. Our session will help us know and understand the roles and responsibilities and dependency of various individuals, groups, and organizations on land governance ecosystem. We will first start with an overview of land governance in India. Then second, we will try to identify and know about the roles of multiple stakeholders. In third part of this lecture, we will know about the coordination mechanisms among stakeholders. In our fourth part, learn through some case studies that illustrate some challenges and best practices. Lastly, in fifth part, we will conclude with understanding emerging trends and challenges in land governance. Land governance in India encompasses the policies, legal frameworks, institutional arrangements, and social practices that determine how land is accessed, utilized, managed, and transferred. It directly affects the livelihoods of millions, particularly in a country where land is a critical resource for agriculture, urban development, industrial growth, and ecological preservation. Stakeholders in land governance include a broad spectrum of entities and individuals, each playing distinct roles and contributing to the multifaceted governance landscape. India's land governance is complex due to its diverse socio-political, economic, and environmental contexts. The governance framework must address issues such as fragmented institutional responsibilities, varying tenure systems, and competing demands for land resources among agriculture, infrastructure, and conservation. The Constitution of India lists land as a state subject, giving individual states significant autonomy in managing their land governance systems. This decentralized structure further adds layers to the complexity, with each state implementing its governance mechanisms based on local needs and historical practices. Effective land governance requires balancing multiple objectives: securing tenure rights, facilitating economic development, ensuring equity for marginalized groups, and promoting sustainable land use practices. This necessitates the participation and coordination of various stakeholders, ranging from government agencies to community groups, each with its distinct roles and responsibilities. Recent developments have emphasized the need for inclusivity and technological integration in land governance. Programs like Digital India Land Records Modernization Program aim to improve transparency and reduce disputes through digitized land records. Meanwhile, participatory frameworks are gaining momentum to ensure that communities have a voice in decisions affecting their land. However, despite these advancements, challenges like institutional fragmentation, outdated legal frameworks, and complex social legal situations and tenure insecurities persist, underscoring the importance of understanding and defining the roles of stakeholders in this ecosystem. In this context, stakeholders are not only entities that manage land resources but also individuals and groups impacted by governance decisions. India's land governance ecosystem, the Department of Land Resources serves as a central coordinating body at the national level. It collaborates with various stakeholders, including state governments, local bodies, and other central ministries to implement land related programs and policies. While land is a state subject in India, making state governments primarily responsible for land administration, the DOLR provides guidance, funding, and policy frameworks to ensure a cohesive approach to land governance across the country. By spearheading initiatives like the Digital India Land Records Modernization Program, the department aims to create a unified and transparent land records system, thereby reducing disputes and enhancing land tenure security. Its efforts are crucial in addressing challenges such as institutional fragmentation and legal ambiguities in land governance, positioning it as a key stakeholder in driving reforms and modernization in this sector. The next would be Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue under India's Ministry of Finance is integral to the country's land governance ecosystem. It oversees the formulation and implementation of policies related to land revenue, stamps, and registration of properties. The department ensures the collection of land taxes and maintains legal frameworks governing land transactions. By setting guidelines for property registration and revenue collection, it provides a structured approach to land administration. Its policies directly influence state revenue departments, impacting land record management and property registrations nationwide. Thus, the Department of Revenue serves as a central authority, harmonizing fiscal policies with land governance objectives across India. The next would be state departments. Now, every state in India has its own land department responsible for land administration, including maintaining land records, revenue collection, and regulating land use. These departments play a pivotal role in implementing state-specific land policies and managing resources under the state's jurisdiction. As land is a state subject in India, they ensure the operationalization of national programs like DIL RMP while addressing state-level governance. Acting as key stakeholders, they bridge the gap between citizens and central guidelines, coordinate with other departments, and address disputes, fostering transparency and efficiency in land governance ecosystem. The next in the line is urban local bodies. Now, urban local bodies play a pivotal role in urban land governance. They manage property taxation, zoning regulations, and building permissions, and making them critical for urban development and also infrastructure planning. Shortened to say ULBs, depend on accurate and updated land records from the Revenue Department and spatial data from the Survey Department for efficient taxation and planning. However, institutional overlaps and lack of integrated systems often lead to inefficiencies. Now, there are some specialized authorities as well. Now, these specialized agencies such as Industrial Development Corporation and housing boards, they manage land for specific purpose like industrial development, affordable housing, or infrastructure development. These authorities ensure that land allocation aligns with economic and social priorities. They depend on the stakeholders for accurate records, legal clarity, and spatial planning. In Gujarat, these authorities collaborate with the Revenue Department under town planning schemes to streamline land acquisition and allocation. Industrial Development Corporations, shortened to say IDCs, and housing boards are crucial stakeholders in land governance, managing land acquisition, allocation, and development for industrial and residential purposes. IDCs ensure land is available for industrial growth by creating infrastructure and economic zones, aligning with state and national development priorities. Housing boards focus on equitable land use for housing, addressing the needs of marginalized population through affordable housing schemes. Both entities play a pivotal role in shaping land governance by influencing land use policies and collaborating with the government departments and ensuring compliance with land-related regulations. Their actions contribute to structured urbanization and sustainable development, aligning land resources with socio-economic goals. The next key stakeholder would be the judiciary. The judiciary ensures legal redressal and enforcement of land rights, abiding the diverse and complex fabric of land legislation. It handles disputes related to land boundaries, ownership tenancy, and encroachments. Its role is indispensable for upholding the rule of law in land governance, particularly in cases involving marginalized communities. Courts depend on accurate and timely records from the revenue and other departments to adjudicate disputes effectively. Initiatives like the Revenue Court Monitoring Systems aim to enhance transparency and reduce pendency of land-related cases. The judiciary's decisions often shape the implementation of land governance policies, highlighting its influence in the ecosystem. The third major stakeholder would be financial institutions. Banks and financial institutions are vital stakeholders in land governance, primarily through their role in providing loans and mortgages. They rely on accurate land records to assess collateral value and ensure the legitimacy of land ownership. Systems like Karnataka's Bhumi integrate land records with banking networks, enabling seamless verification of ownerships and mortgage creation. This dependency underscores the need for transparent and updated records to reduce risk of fraud. Moreover, financial institutions contribute to economic development by facilitating credit access for land-based activities such as agriculture, real estate, and industrial projects. The next in line, the major stakeholder, would be us, citizens and the communities. Citizens, as end users, have direct interactions with the land governance system, relying on it to secure tenure, register transactions, and access land for livelihood. Communities, particularly Adivasis, Dalits, women, and other marginalized groups, often face challenges in navigating complex legal and bureaucratic frameworks. Recognizing traditional land rights and community claims as mandated by the Forest Rights Act is crucial for social equity. Citizens also act as watchdogs, ensuring accountability in governance. Next stakeholder would be the NGOs and civil society organizations. Now, NGOs and civil society organizations play a dual role as advocates and facilitators in land governance. They engage in policy advocacy, ensuring that marginalized groups like women, tribal communities, and landless laborers are not excluded from governance practice. They also provide education and legal aid to citizens, empowering them to claim their rights. These organizations often act as intermediaries between the government and citizens, facilitating participatory planning and conflict resolution. For example, NGOs have been instrumental in implementing the Forest Rights Act and advocating for women's land rights under the Hindu Succession Act. Now, let's understand the coordination mechanisms of these stakeholders. Coordination among these stakeholders in land governance is essential for efficient, transparent, and equitable management of land resources. Various mechanisms aim to integrate the activities of key players such as revenue departments, urban local bodies, judiciary, and financial institutions to streamline land administration and address overlapping responsibilities. Efficient land governance hinges on seamless coordination among stakeholders, yet fragmented institutional responsibilities often pose challenges. Key issues include inconsistent data sharing between urban local bodies and revenue departments, which complicates land use planning and property tax assessments. Additionally, the lack of integrated IT systems to link land records, property registration, and dispute resolution processes creates inefficiency and delays. These gaps lead to overlapping roles, data discrepancies, and legal ambiguities, undermining the transparency and accountability. Addressing these challenges requires robust technological integration, standardized protocols, and collaborative frameworks to align stakeholders' efforts and ensure effective governance. Now, we need to understand movements related to land governance in India. Movements advocating for equitable land governance in India have played a crucial role in shaping policies and addressing historical injustices. These movements emerge from diverse socio-political, economic, and cultural contexts and represent the voices of marginalized communities, including farmers, tribal population, women, and landless laborers. Here, we discuss some of the most significant movements related to land governance in India. The first movement we will learn about is the Bhudan and Gramdan movement. Initiated by Vinoba Bhave in 1951, the Bhudan movement sought to address landlessness and inequality by encouraging wealthy landowners to voluntarily donate land to landless peasants. The Gramdan movement, a subsequent phase, aimed at pooling entire villages' land resources for collective ownership and use. These movements highlighted the ethical and moral dimensions of land distribution, advocating for a Gandhian vision of equity and social justice. Now we will learn about some tribal movements. Tribal communities across India have historically struggled against the land disposition due to state policies, industrial projects, and deforestation. Movements like the Coal Rebellion, the Narmada Bachao Andolan, and Jharkhand Mukti Morcha fought to protect tribal rights over forest lands and ancestral territories. The enactment of Forest Rights Act 2006 was a significant outcome of such mobilization, aiming to restore the traditional forest and land rights of the indigenous people. Third would be women's land rights movements. Despite constitutional safeguards, women in India face significant challenges in owning and inheriting land. Women's groups and NGOs have advocated for equal inheritance rights under the Hindu Succession Act Amendment 2005. These movements emphasize land as a tool for women's empowerment, economic independence, and enhanced bargaining power within households and communities. Fourth would be anti-land acquisition movements. Rapid urban industrialization and urbanization have led to widespread land acquisitions and often resulting in displacement and loss of livelihood for rural and tribal communities. Movements such as Singur movement and POSCO Pratirodh Sangram Samiti protest against POSCO emerged as resistance against forcible land acquisition by the government and private corporations. These struggles have pushed for fair compensation, rehabilitation, and the recognition of consent as a prerequisite for acquisition. Fifth, there have been Dalit land rights movements. Now, Dalit communities have historically been denied access to land due to entrenched caste hierarchies. Movements like the Dalit land rights movement in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra focus on reclaiming common lands and securing land titles for Dalit households. These movements aim to challenge the structural inequalities perpetuated by caste and land ownership patterns. Now we will talk about environmental movements in India. Environmental and land governance are intrinsically linked. Movements like the Chipko movement in Uttarakhand and the Silent Valley movement in Kerala have spotlighted the unsustainable exploitation of natural resources. These movements advocate for community based land governance that integrates ecological concerns with human livelihoods. Next movements are about land reform movements. Post independence, several state specific land reform movements arose, demanding redistribution of surplus land from large landholders to landless farmers. States like Kerala and West Bengal witnessed significant land reform initiatives due to these mobilizations. However, the implementation of reforms has been uneven. The movements continue to demand comprehensive reforms. There have been recent movements as well. Some recent movements, such as the farmers' protest in 2020-21 against the agricultural laws, reflect the ongoing struggle over land use and governance. Farmers feared these laws would undermine traditional land use practices and corporate ownership would increase rural indebtedness and dispossession. Now we will talk about some best practices in coordination. Effective coordination in land governance is achieved through innovative practices that integrate technology, align policies, and enhance capacity building. First, we will talk about the technological integration. Digital platforms streamline processes, reduce discrepancies, and promote transparency. For example, Karnataka's Harris HALRIS system links property registration with mutation processes, ensuring real-time updates to land records. Andhra Pradesh Me Seva program consolidates various land-related services such as registration and revenue updates into a single citizen-centric platform. Now, we will talk about policy convergence. Harmonizing policies across departments minimizes conflicts and optimizes resource use. For example, Gujarat's town planning schemes integrate urban planning with revenue records, enabling seamless alignment between spatial data and land administration, which reduces disputes and enhances land use efficiency. The other thing is capacity building. Empowering officials with modern day tools enhances efficiency and data accuracy. Training programs for revenue officials on technologies like GIS mapping and satellite imagery improve their ability to manage and update land records effectively, ensuring better governance outcomes. Now, next, we will discuss about case studies that talk about state-specific initiatives demonstrating effective land governance practices, showcasing the potential for innovation and integration. These initiatives highlight the importance of technology and policy integration in improving the land governance, making them replicable models for other states. Me Seva from Andhra Pradesh. This is a citizen-centric e-governance platform that offers over 350 services, including land-related ones, through a centralized digital system. It simplifies access to land records, ensures transparency, and enhances service delivery for citizens. In Gujarat, the town planning schemes integrate land acquisition with urban planning, reducing disputes and enabling equitable development. By aligning revenue records with spatial planning, these schemes ensure efficient resource allocation and minimize conflicts. Talking about the Bhumi project in Karnataka, it is one of India's first digital land record systems. Bhumi connects land records with banks and financial institutions. This integration streamlines processes like loan approvals and mortgages, reducing fraud and ensuring data accuracy. Now, talking about emerging trends, India's land governance is undergoing significant shifts driven by digital transformation and community centric approaches. The increasing digitization of land records through initiatives like Digital India Land Records Modernization Program is aimed at enhancing transparency, reducing disputes, and improving accessibility. Technologies like GIS mapping, blockchain, and geospatial tools are being adopted to ensure secure and tamper-proof land transactions. Platforms like Andhra Pradesh's MeSeva demonstrate how digital integration can make land governance more efficient by providing real-time services to citizens. Simultaneously, community transformation is emerging as a critical element of land governance. Talking about the institutional fragmentation, one of the most pressing challenges is the lack of coordination among various departments involved in the land governance. Multiple agencies, including the Revenue Department, Registration Department, Survey Department, urban local bodies, and specialized authorities, operate with overlapping roles and responsibilities. This institutional fragmentation leads to inefficiencies, inconsistent data management, and delays in decision making. For example, the lack of integration between the urban planning authorities and land records departments result in planning that is misaligned with ground realities. Efforts such as Karnataka's Harris-Halris integration attempt to bridge these gaps, but implementation remains uneven across states. Talking about the legal ambiguity, India's legal framework for land governance is often described as complex and outdated. Many land laws were enacted decades ago and have not been updated to reflect current realities, such as urbanization, changing land use patterns, and environmental concerns. The lack of clarity in these laws complicates enforcement and exacerbates disputes. For instance, ambiguities in inheritance laws or forest rights often result in prolonged legal battles, undermining trust in the governance system. Streamlined legal reforms and clear codification of land rights are critical for addressing this challenge. Now let's talk about tenure insecurity. Tenure insecurity disproportionately affects marginalized groups, including women, tribal communities, and informal settlers. Women, for instance, often face barriers to owning or inheriting land due to entrenched patriarchal norms and despite legal provisions under the Hindu Succession Act. Similarly, tribal communities struggle to secure rights to their ancestral lands even under protective legislation like Forest Rights Act. Informal settlers in urban areas face constant threats of eviction due to the lack of formal recognition of their settlements. These insecurities not only marginalize vulnerable populations but also deter investments and sustainable land use practices. Addressing these challenges requires a multi-pronged approach, including institutional reforms to enhance coordination, legal updates to simplify and clarify land laws, and targeted initiatives to secure tenure for vulnerable groups. Leveraging technology for integration and participatory frameworks for inclusive governance can also play transformative roles in overcoming these systemic issues. Now, to conclude, land governance movements in India are deeply rooted in socio-political struggles and economic inequities. These movements underscore the importance of participatory governance, equitable land distribution, and the recognition of traditional and communal land rights. They also highlight the need for robust legal and institutional frameworks to balance development with social justice and ecological sustainability. As India progresses, these movements continue to play a vital role in shaping a more inclusive and just land governance system. Effective land governance is essential for economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability in India. Addressing these challenges requires enhancing interagency coordination, adopting technology for integration and transparency, strengthening legal frameworks and tenure security. By understanding the roles of diverse stakeholders and fostering collaboration, we can move towards a more inclusive and efficient land governance system.